My baby gonna hold her tight, gonna grab some afternoon delight. My morrow's always bitten when it's right, Why wait until the middle of a cold dark night? Hey, it's always clear in the light of day. Hey, it's always clear in the light of day. Hey, it's always clear in the light of day.
I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna put that on the top of the episode. Hello, and welcome back to another pulse-pounding, action-packed episode of the Gamesplaining podcast. I, Eric Crosby, am joined by my co-host, Jake Clark, in a rip-roaring exploration of video games' darkest corners.
Thoroughly entertained. Enjoyed 10 out of 10. Amazing radio intro. Also a good intro for a very certain channel of television. All in all, 11 out of 10 stars. Am floored. Pants are wet. Amazing.
Well, let's hope the listeners give the same reaction.
Hey, it's been a good time, all told. I mean, with the singing at the beginning, how's that going to go at the end?
Oh, yeah.
That's like the MC in the middle of the lounge.
Oh, maybe we'll put the singing at the end. Maybe we'll leave it as a surprise.
Listeners, should that greet you at the end of this episode, those are my mellifluous tones. Don't blame me, he put them there.
Alright. We're joining you now for the first time in the same space, probably one of the only times given that we live in different cities. But we're now both post-double vaxxed in the tail end of these pandemic times. By the time you're hearing this episode, who knows what the world will hold. But we're now joining you for a very special, not live, but live to us in person broadcast of the Gamesplaining podcast. Would you like to give me your choice of game for this episode?
All right, so I've got a question for you. Which way do you want to break? Do you want it to go zany, or do you want it to go? I was gonna say either dark or weird, but zany or dark. Let's say dark.
Zany or dark? Which one would be more educational?
Oh, that's hard to say.
Because I think what I like most about the BioShock episode, which is my favorite one we've done so far, is that we lean a bit more into the intellectual tradition behind the work, which I think is fun.
Zany in this case. Then.
Okay, yes, I'm fine with that because I think having a few jokes in there won't hurt. So
it's going to be amazing considering what we're talking about. But that would be so first one, deity.
Deity. Okay.
Of organized acrimony.
Okay. I know what you're on about. All right, so this is a series of games from PlayStation 3 era, I think. Somewhat older now, but you're talking, of course, about God of War. Yes?
How did you know?
God of War is a zany franchise, that's for sure. I have played the newest God of War game, which I think is where you got the idea for the episode, as it's sitting on my shelf over there.
It possibly might have been a line of sight thought.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about this a bit, because it was we've kind of talked about it a little bit before.
Yeah.
And I've been reading the War Nerd Iliad, which is a translation of the Iliad, I think a translation by a guy named John Dolan, who used to write the War Nerd column for Exile magazine. It's a great character, although the degree to which it's a character is increasingly minimal with the podcast and so forth. But he's a very interesting guy, and the book is a very interesting look at a lot of these characters, particularly in the Greek pantheon. There's a part of it where it's like scholarship and especially creative takes that will go at the Greek gods for different, let's just mildly call it personality flaws.
Yeah.
Is not new, but it is quite rich.
Yeah.
Because the degree to which those gods have, I guess, very specific humanity and very multi-layered humanity is quite a fun time to deal with.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why the Iliad is still, people are still publishing translations of it. And that's the thing I find very interesting when we talk about God of War, which, as I'm aware, gets you to fight literal gods of war, then all of the gods, several times over.
Yes, yeah. I'd like to, instead of the Greek pantheon, instead focus on the Norse pantheon in this particular episode, because the newest game, the one that I have played, and I'm aware of the other games. I know what happens in them. I know what they're about. I know how they play. I've played bits and pieces of them. But I think that the newest game has a lot more interesting content to talk about, both from a narrative perspective and from games as a whole kind of perspective, the presentation of games as a medium.
Really?
The original trilogy of God of War is comically easy to explain and probably doesn't have a lot of merit discussing as any kind of an intellectual work, because it does lean into these, obviously these Homeric themes and stuff like that. But it's still very much pulp action at the end of the day. It has character development, it has, tragedy, but it's very much pulp tragedy where it's a guy loses his family and he uses his muscles to beat the shit out of the people that robbed him of his family, right?
This is what I wanted to get into, is like the underlayer, overlayer too, of just bleak violence that is there. I mean, also, there's a lot of the machismo at end. I'm aware, I don't know if this is because I know Grand Theft Auto does this, something, because there's a Wikipedia article on it, but there's this thing in God of War, I'm told, I don't know if this is accurate, where you can do, there's some sexual escapades you can get up to. So that's the thing. Okay.
Yeah, in the original trilogy, the Greek trilogy, there's mini games where you have to press buttons in time with Kratos' hip swinging movements.
Nope.
Cheers to that.
Salute.
So I think there's a lot more from the game perspective to discuss in the newer one, especially as it relates to television, and what I think you might get more out of as well. The Greek stuff, it's there, but it's not nearly as dense of a work. It's not literary, the original trilogy, where I would argue the new one, it very much is, and it is trying to evoke the sensation of fable and myth, right? Whereas the original trilogy is much more pulp action with those themes, but not, recalling the sensation, if that makes sense.
Okay. Is that a progression from it, then? Is it the same character you're playing?
It is the same character. So, God of War 2018, which is distinct from God of War, the original. They're both just called God of War, but God of War 2018, being the most recent game in the franchise, came out sometime after the last game in the franchise, which I believe was a PlayStation portable game, PSP game, but I'm not sure if I'm right about that. Anyhow, the newest game does feature Kratos, the same character from the original games. But in the beginning of the game, it's unclear if it's the same Kratos or not, or if it's more of a mythic Mad Max kind of character where it's a different person that is Kratos, but is going through a different story, and it's the same character but a mythic character, right?
I don't know who's crazier, me or everyone else.
Yeah. But throughout the narrative of the new game of God of War 2018, it becomes very, very clear that this is the same Kratos, and that he was the same Kratos that killed Zeus, killed the Greek pantheon, basically.
Oh, so he killed the entire pantheon.
Pretty much, yeah. He was responsible for basically the apocalypse in the Greek world. After this, how the game starts is that he is burying his wife, and he is with his son Atreus. The original trilogy never featured any of these characters, but Atreus is a character from Greek myth, I believe.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, so he's named after
his
that character.
Kids do not do too well in the immediate context of the Iliad. We can get to that later, but that's a very precipitous name. How old is the kid?
I don't know if it's directly stated how old he is. I would guess he's around 10 to 12 years old.
Oh, so still a boy.
Yeah, he's a boy. Actually, that's the kind of joke of the game's release, was that Kratos in the game often just simply refers to his son as boy throughout the game. He's got a very, very deep voice, and just boy. That's the only way. He doesn't call him Atreus very often, and he is named after the Greek character Atreus. It's not the same person.
There's an odd thing this reminds me of, is of all people, another macho individual, Teddy Roosevelt. Because Teddy Roosevelt's first wife died, and it broke him emotionally. Yeah. But the daughter he had with that wife, Alice Roosevelt, who was famous personality, he could not refer to her as Alice because it was his wife's name, because he just jammed it deep inside himself.
Yeah.
And so he said, Alan, daughter!
Daughter, yeah.
He would call his daughter.
Yeah.
Which I imagine had no impact on further behavior. I imagine that was just smooth sailing.
A very kind of similar situation in this game. Obviously not the name, but it's very clear by the presentation of the beginning of this game that Kratos has not been a present father to Atreus. It seems that we're actually seeing their first real interactions as father and son in this game, which becomes the main theme of the game, is the interaction between a father and a son. And I think the game is actually deeply touching and affecting with the way it portrays the relationship between Kratos and Atreus as father and son, because it begins with, Kratos is this kind of absent father, very much the machismo, aggressive sort, who's always trying to tell his son, you gotta man up and, fight against these problems, that kind of thing. But by the end of the game, we see him become, more vulnerable, more close to his son. We see him eventually, when Atreus' life is threatened, when he becomes sick about 2/3 of the way through the game, we see Kratos cry for the first time we've ever seen him cry, I think. Or he might have in the original game. That might have been a mistake on my part. But we see him basically break down, right? And we see this character who's a mythic figure on the verge of complete collapse because his son is in danger, right? And
this man who's killed gods.
Yeah, killed hundreds of thousands of human beings too, right? And we see him humanized in this very deep and personal way. And so while it is the same Kratos from those old games in that literally it's the same character, he's obviously a different man now than he was when he did all of that. Because in this game, he's very much trying to teach his son Atreus that the gods are not good, but you can't just go around killing people to solve your problems. And Atreus kind of, he sees what his father did. What his father did was go around killing all the gods to solve his problems. And so Atreus eventually kills Magni or Modi, one of the two.
Is he a dwarf?
Not a dwarf. No, I think I might have misremembered the names of characters. He kills a god who is the brother of another god. I don't think they're dwarves though, because there are dwarves that are like your,
there's a few. They're smiths.
Yeah, the smiths in the game. Yeah. So I think I might have misremembered the names. But anyways,
very Tolkienish.
Atreus kills one of the gods out of pure rage, pure hatred, right? And Kratos basically goes like, "Boy, what are you doing? You can't just kill somebody out of spite, right?" We see Atreus go through this kind of, Kratos doesn't initially tell Atreus that he's a god, because Atreus is born of a god, therefore is a god, right? And
so Kratos is a god. So.
Yeah, Kratos is a god. He is the god of war at this point.
He is.
He is the god of war because he kills Ares and takes his throne at the end of the first game.
What about
in the series?
So sorry, this is nitpicking, but Tyr. What Tyr?
Tyr is gone at this point in when the game takes place.
For clarity, the reason I'm nitpicking is Tyr is, if I'm aware, the Norse god of war.
Yeah.
So that's in the game.
So okay. Kratos is the Greek god of war, but the way that the gods are portrayed in this game is they're humanized in the sense that, the god of war is a title. It's not a single occupied position, right? It's a title. And so anyhow, so Atreus, when he finds out he's a god, basically starts treating, mortals like dispensable, oh, we're gods, we don't have to worry about their petty squabbling. And Kratos again has to go, boy, you can't do that, you've gotta treat people with respect, because again, Kratos did not do this. He sacrificed hundreds of thousands of human lives for his own quest for revenge, right? Eventually Atreus comes to realize, this is, the better way. The kind of pivotal twist of the game is that we find out that Atreus' mother was actually a frost giant, and that Atreus is not his real name. His real name is Loki, and that's where the game leaves you off.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, right? I think it's extremely clever.
That's actually very clever. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait a second. I got some questions. So, I can't remember who Loki's father is in the Norse mythology. Somebody probably will.
Yeah.
Some black metal enthusiasts from Norway.
Yeah.
But I've got to think that's very interesting. It's a very good twist.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Sorry for anyone who was listening that just got totally spoiled by that. But if you clicked on this, you probably should have known by now.
So, do you kill gods in this game as well?
Yeah.
Well, Atreus does, you mentioned.
Yes, and Kratos kills Balder. Which
oh, really?
Yeah, which obviously invokes
the god of beauty.
Is Balder the god of beauty?
Kind of. So Loki kills him. No, wait. Does he kill Frey this way? There's mistletoe involved.
Yeah. So that's what happens. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Atreus gets the mistletoe arrow, and yeah.
That's Loki. So Atreus shoots Balder.
Not directly. I'm trying to remember how exactly it turns out, but Baldur hates Kratos and basically is out for revenge against Kratos for some reason. And Kratos doesn't want to kill Baldur for any reason and is actually friends with Freya at the start of the game. Yeah. Essentially, through the game, Baldur becomes more and more Kratos and Atreus' enemy, not least in part because of Atreus' own actions, because of Loki's actions, right? And essentially, Kratos is forced into a position where he has to kill Baldur or Atreus, Loki, will die. He's got to kill someone else's son to save his own son. Yeah. And the whole theme of parenthood comes together really brilliantly in that scene because we see, Freya begging Kratos, don't kill my son. Don't rob me of the only thing I have. And Kratos is like, well, now you know why I have to, that kind of thing, right? I can't lose my son, so I have to kill yours. It kind of sets up Freya as being a more major villain in what will eventually be the rest of the Norse trilogy, I imagine you're making.
That's very Iliad-ish, too. Mm-hmm. That's very much the kind of thing, because a big theme in the Iliad is, well, in the War Nerd Iliad, this is almost a joke, which is that Achilles knows he's going to die.
Yeah.
Everyone else knows he's going to die. It really gets under his skin that everyone else knows he's going to die, and he has moments crying to his mother, who's a sea goddess, saying, "Why am I going to die, Mom?" It's like, well, it's mistakes of dipping you in the river and rich. Hindsight's 20/20. Sorry, son. There's that element to it.
Yeah.
I imagine in this case, so Baldur is the villain, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. He's kind of portrayed as being like the shit starter who doesn't know when to stop, right? And because of this shit-starting attitude, he invokes Kratos and Atreus' wrath and gets himself killed.
It wasn't it wasn't an assault. It was a prank, bro.
Yeah, well, because Baldur can't feel pain and can't die, and so he's constantly seeking that. He's constantly seeking a fight that will actually challenge him. So that's why he shows up to fight Kratos at the beginning. Okay. I'm now recalling more details of the story. So he shows up to fight Kratos because he knows Kratos is a god and is like, maybe someone will finally challenge me. And so he basically shows up to start shit and then...
Did he kill his wife? Did he kill Kratos' wife?
No, I think she just dies. If not of natural causes, but because of some natural phenomena. I can't recall. But she doesn't die of any person killing her.
Oh, okay, so...
In the first game, Kratos killed his first wife. He by accident, but yeah, he killed his entire family by accident. Basically, Ares made him kill his family.
Like Hercules, he goes insane, or
no, it's through if I recall right, it's just through like obfuscation and misdirection.
They have him seeing different people's faces.
Yeah, something like that. It's some god trickery stuff, and yeah, that's what invokes Kratos' quest for revenge initially, is that Ares basically makes him kill his family, and then Kratos obviously does not like that, and embarks on a quest for revenge, which eventually leads to him killing Zeus, his own father. And great scene in the Norse game, which is when Atreus and Kratos visit Helheim. Kratos begins seeing visions of what he did to his own father, and Atreus basically realizing, oh, my father killed his father, so what does that mean for me? Is this just what gods do? Do they just kill their parents when they get mad?
That's anomalous, because Zeus didn't kill Kronos, and Kronos didn't kill Uranus. They probably couldn't have. So there's a thing where, I have a question about this, it's a little bit of a strange one. Is there a thing, I mean, in this game specifically, because this game seems like it's more self-aware than the others, but...
Yeah, very much so.
Is there a thing where he's breaking cycles, or breaking trajectories that are otherwise infinite?
No, because they're kind of following fate, right? Because they're weaving the threads of Norse mythology, and Jormungandr is a prominent character in this game, appears quite a few times, and Jormungandr obviously
big snake.
Has seen what becomes of the Norse world.
He knows all time.
Yeah, he's a time traveler. He knows what's going to happen, and Jormungandr helps you along in your journey. He's a horrifying character because he's this giant serpent. Portrayed very frighteningly, I would say, and yet he is like a benevolent, helpful character on your journey, which I thought was a really cool aesthetic choice. Like making this helpful, kind character just horrifying, like terribly large and cosmic kind of threat.
That is very interesting. Like, there's a lot of like weird, very psychedelic stuff involved in all of this mythology, but in like Norse mythology, because like Odin gives up his eye to see all, and he drinks from the well, which is all human existence. What does that even mean, man?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's amazing stuff. Is Odin a character? Actually, I should have asked that off the top.
Odin is not directly present in the story, but his ravens observe you throughout the game. They're like a collectible item where you shoot his ravens. Basically, you take them out so that he can't watch you anymore.
Like security cameras.
Yeah. And Thor does not appear until the end of the game, which I thought was an excellent holding back. They're saving him for later. He appears literally after the credits. He shows up at Kratos' house and is like, okay, now you really fucked up, buddy.
You killed my cousin, I think?
Yeah,
I don't
cousin
know.
or brother or something. No, I don't think they're
Freyr.
brothers, but yeah, I don't.
No, not to Freyr, but to Balder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember his relation.
I don't know. They're all incestuous fucks.
Well, there's a lot of that too. I mean, that's the thing with the fate element. Does remind me of the Iliad a bit.
Mm-hmm.
That the incest always, because there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
But in the Iliad, it's very bizarrely predestined. There's actually a really weird couple books by Dan Simmons, Ilium and Olympos, which are part of it involves the Iliad, but in a science fiction context, and there's a lot of other things going on. There's also a very extended reference to For Ader or Ardor by Vladimir Nabokov.
What's that?
It's a bizarre book by the guy who wrote Lolita.
Oh, okay.
Very good book, though. Highly recommend it. I do like it a lot. Also about incest, because these things loop around. All of it's a flat circle.
It's all incest all the way down.
Yeah. In that one, they have a bit of a joke where it's like, what do you have to do to keep up the predestination? Which is an interesting assumption on Dan Simmons' part. In the War Nerd Iliad, it's very much pointed out, at least as far as I've read, because I haven't finished reading the whole thing. But as far as I've read, it's like, well, they're just so much more powerful than you that they can basically, their petty squabbles are your equivalent of a world order. Which is kind of squares. Like, there's a famous scene in the Iliad where, so there's a few scenes of just people getting empowered by various gods to do things. Mm-hmm. And in one case, Diomedes is, he's one of the Greeks. He's one of Odysseus' buddies, and some of the plays about this, he and Odysseus are kind of sidekicks. Or not sidekicks, but kind of almost like a buddy cop duo.
Yeah.
He's the bruiser of the two.
Okay.
And he gets empowered by Athena, and he gets made so powerful he can fight a literal god of war. He gets to fight Ares, and he also stabs Aphrodite in her wrist, which is what makes Ares very angry, because Aphrodite's a big fan of the Trojans. Ares is schlepping his aunt, so he's going to go in on their side. And you'd think having the god of war on your side would result in victory. Turns out, no. Well, he wins either way, really. But Diomedes manages to fight the god of war, among many others, and then win, kind of. I mean, in the Iliad, there's a bit of a question. Does anybody except Odysseus really win? We know Agamemnon doesn't. Yeah. And that's the house of Atreus. But there's this thing where Diomedes is able to fight the god of war, but he's also a puppet as he does it. He's just... Athena gives him the power to do that. Yeah. It's one of those things where, reading it, the Iliad's written amazingly. There's the Bernard Fagel's translation is the one I had to read in school, and that's really amazing. It really goes. There's a lot of, even when they're just listing ships from places, the momentum is really spectacular. Yeah. But they're just oh, wow! These are guys who are going to fight the gods. And one's like, hey, that guy's fighting a god! At the end of the time, it's wild! It's one of those things where it really does build to that a lot. Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of blood. Yeah. It's very gruesome. The scale is massive, too. Yeah, yeah. Very, very much true of this as well. What I think the new game at least does well is building tension very slowly, but very deliberately, because all of these transgressions, Atreus' mistakes of killing a god, that kind of thing, they slowly build up, and Kratos keeps warning him, if we keep going down this path, you won't be able to turn back. But it's that feeling of predestination, like you say, because, Loki is destined to do this stuff. And was he told to do any of this, I guess? It's just purely, rage, basically, that motivates him. It's just how a child would be angry if they were slighted by somebody, right? Yeah. He's a kid, and he reacts like a kid would. It feels believable. Yeah, you're just... early teenager, just angry and horny all the time. And
Yeah.
Does he have a sword or a spear? Or
He's an archer.
Mistletoe arrow. Sorry,
yeah,
I mentioned.
Yeah, mistletoe arrow. Yeah. There is another aspect of the game that I want to talk about that's less the literary themes and more the presentation, which I think is something that's important to it as a work in the legacy of games, which is that God of War 2018, it falls into this kind of category of games that are trying to emulate premium cable, where it's very much shot like a television series. It has these long scenes of just dialogue in an interesting environment, that kind of thing. And as well, the entire game is done in a single take. There's no camera cuts at all, which is very, very cool as a style of presentation for a video game. It makes it feel very present, you know? And it's used to wonderful effect.
They did a Birdman, if you will.
Yeah. And in the period of time in which Atreus is sick, and Kratos realizes that if he's going to save his son, he's going to have to do some real shit. There's this excellent long scene where Kratos rows a rowboat all the way back to the beginning of the game from where you've gotten to at this point. You go all the way back. He opens up a hidden compartment below his home, and inside is the Blades of Chaos, which are the chain whip dagger weapons from the first game. And he takes off the bandages that have been around his arms the whole game, and you see the scars of where the chains once were. And he slowly wraps them back around as he realizes, I'm going to have to become what I was to save my son. And that moment, the way that it's done all in a single shot, there's no cuts, it doesn't skip any time. He goes through like a tunnel and he sees, Athena, and she speaks to him, and it's when it becomes clear that, yes, this is the same Kratos, that we've been with all along. This is the same Kratos that killed those gods. The presentation lends it such an incredible atmosphere. And it's, other games like The Last of Us as well have done this format where they're emulating premium cable, where there's kind of episodes and they've got this incredible, style of camera work and stuff, heavy emphasis on character acting, that kind of thing. I think it's tremendous.
We will talk about The Last of Us at one point. I do have a question about Athena showing up. So,
sure.
Does Athena like him? No. Did she at one point?
Yeah, she's more of a disappointed figure, I would say. Like a disappointed mom is the way that she appears in this game.
Did she have a hand in him killing the other gods? There's a thing where...
I feel like, yes. I feel like she did, actually. Yeah.
My favorite line in the War Nerd Iliad is, so it's John Dolan, as of yet, is describing the contest. So Paris, the story of the Iliad, right? So Paris, give the golden apple to either Hera, Athena, or Aphrodite. Who do you think is most beautiful? And the point of the chapter is Paris is an idiot because he gave it to the person who was actually most beautiful, but also the most impossibly useless choice you could have done.
Yeah.
Because Hera is the goddess of basically all civic governance. So you could have had every city in the world, which in a world of internecine violence and arranged marriages means you can have every woman in every city you own.
Yeah.
If you are Athena's friend, you have infinite military ability, you are possibly the smartest person on Earth, and the line is, a man named Alexander took her up on that offer a few years later, and there's tons of cities named after him to this day.
Yeah.
Which is a great line to have put in there.
Yeah.
Because there's even the thing where it's like, that is the price of it. Because Alexander the Great died in ignominious, or at least kind of bizarre circumstances.
Yeah.
But after he just, spread his name everywhere. There's an amazing thing, right? That's a joke in Watchmen. I wonder that because Athena is also Odysseus' patron.
Yeah.
Athena is because she's the goddess of wisdom. She's also the goddess of war.
Right.
And there's one god of war on the Greek side and one god on the Trojan side. It's a fun thing, you see.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a fun thing. Everyone murders each other. You get a massacre. You get a massacre. You're in the massacre. Sucks to be you. You're in good company. There's a thing I wonder about that where I really suspect that if you were to kind of put this up, if you were to figure someone who would usher in a massacre of the gods accidentally but effectively, Athena would probably do it.
Yeah. I think now that you were saying that, I do recall that she is kind of the player's guide, or at least helps you along in the original trilogy, like the Greek trilogy. So I do think you're right that she is...
Like Odysseus.
Yeah, like an aid to Kratos in his quest to destroy the gods, to destroy Olympus, I guess, and eventually the whole Greek world.
And she thinks she'll become king after that.
I think that's the tack, yeah.
Because she's Zeus's child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if that's not what it is, I would be surprised. I feel like my memory is either I'm recovering memories satanic panic style, or that's what it is.
Oh, well, that's, like if Athena is in your memories, like flushing you through a toilet where you're then molested by one of your teachers.
Yeah.
That'll happen. That is a McMartin preschool trial joke, for the record. That is not QAnon theory. That is a bit from the McMartin preschool.
They're very similar. They're very, very similar.
Yeah, they are. So, I think I have an idea of this. Is there anything else you want to mention about the God of War, the Norse one?
No, I think that's most of what I wanted to get into. Yeah, the kind of more personal approach and the television-esque presentation. I think those are the two main things that I think cemented as a great work in video games.
Got two last questions for you.
Yep.
Is it a story about Kratos, or is it about Atreus? Is it a coming-of-age story, or is it a middle-age story?
That's a tough question to answer.
Maybe both.
I would argue it's more Atreus' story, because Kratos has already had his tale, right? He's already had his hero's journey kind of story. Atreus is the one that learns and grows by the end. But Kratos does as well. He learns to be a better father by the end. He learns, what it means to actually care for somebody. Because he cared for his wife, obviously, but there's a difference between romantic love and parental love, and that's the thing that he learns in the game is how do you actually love somebody? How do you show them that? There's a brilliant scene. One of my favorite scenes in the game is near the very start when Atreus is he's crying and he's at the edge of this cliff, and the camera kind of beautifully pans behind Kratos and Atreus looking over this beautiful landscape, and Atreus is crying, and you see Kratos raise his hand to put it on Atreus' shoulder, and then he stops and decides not to console his son. And Atreus doesn't know. We see it because the camera's behind them. And I think that moment is just one of the most beautifully affecting visual representations of like a father-son relationship I've ever seen. Absolutely brilliant.
And you're still killing a lot of people through the game, for the record.
A lot of Draugr, mostly.
Giants, kind of thing?
Yeah, trolls.
A few probably is in
Valkyries, you kill some Valkyries and stuff, yeah.
Oh, wild.
Mm-hmm. You kill every single one of them.
Well, that makes the Wagner a little more difficult.
Yeah.
All right, I think I've got a good impression of this, because that was actually very different from the one I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because I've heard some things about, like, the God of War where it's like, yeah, man, you get to button mash sex games and so forth. You get to plow the whole paddock,
Yeah.
And then you get this very affecting story.
Yeah.
About a father and a son, kind of like in two ways, a coming of age story.
Yeah, it's very much a Fury Road kind of like, again, comparing it to Mad Max, a mythical figure, but yeah, it's very much a Fury Road to Thunderdome kind of parallel, right?
I'm trying to figure out who's crazier, me or everyone else.
Yeah.
I don't know if the microphone picked that one up, but that was I do love that line. Yeah. Okay. I have one last question. This doesn't relate to the analysis at all. Freya, this is a weird thing about Freya. And this has to do with... does she have a carriage, and is it drawn by cats?
No, she lives in a giant turtle.
That's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty
I don't have to improve on that. I just know that there's...
Giant tortoise, sorry.
There's a cat called... Oh, that's very important.
Yeah.
Flippers or feet, right?
Yeah.
There's these cats. They're Norwegian forest cats. They look like a normal cat wearing a fur coat. Skugkatten or something like that. And they will chase after foxes. Things like that. And they will run straight up trees. And they draw Freya's carriage in the myth, which is just pretty amazing. I'm not a cat person, but it's like it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I hope it's not what you were expecting, but I hope that was enlightening or interesting for you and for the listener.
That was very interesting. I always like this because I think that, I focus on the Greek myth a lot because I like when I was a wee lad, there was a book of those myths going around, like there, and I remembered a lot of them. And then when we were both small, I imagine there was like the Percy Jackson series, among other things, which
like God of War for kids, yeah.
I'm just trying to think of the best not dwell on that. I realize that is contextualized a lot of it for me, and but you can do a lot with it. It really is multifaceted. There are as many in polytheistic pantheons. There's really as many iterations as there are kinds of human beings.
Yeah, well, and I think
infinite.
The kind of impetus to take older games that were maybe in that that tradition of games as entertainment for boys, like power fantasies and stuff, and make them into something greater than they were. I think that's very valuable, and I think it speaks to what other games could try to emulate, other stories could try to emulate, taking something old and probably, not very dense thematically and making it into something better, new, and still preserving the characters, preserving the timeline. You don't have to erase it all to make it into something better.
Call of Duty becomes a reflection on PTSD.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Spec Ops The Line is that. Maybe we'll talk about Spec Ops The Line someday.
We may want to, because I gotta...
That's
that
a great
could be
one.
fun. All right, that's a teaser for next time. I've been Jake Clark.
Oh, are you not going to summarize the game?
Oh yeah, so let me re-summarize it. I've been Jake Clark, but this is what I think the game has gone. There is not a carriage drawn by cats, however, there is an awesome domicile inside a tortoise, which seems pretty great, honestly. I really think that's the best way to have a mobile home.
Yeah.
And essentially it is a dual coming-of-age story based around, I guess, in Kratos' case, reflections on his backstory, and Atreus' case, becoming the god of mischief in a way that is kind of predestined. It seems like they can't really escape it either way, despite what Kratos tries, anyhow.
Yeah, that's pretty apt. I'd say this is another successful run.
All right, there we go.
Okay, now you can sign off.
Cheers. I've been and still am Jake Clark.
And I was once Eric Crosby.
Bye.